dragon is the largest creature at all that you'll ever be able to fight in EverQuest.
And while you're on those servers on Mordor and Angmar, ring wraiths can creep in and attack you at any time.
We have over 25,000 unique game pieces interacting in our platform.
Who are some of your favorite heroes and villains?
Classic man, all day long.
Games. And more than just a digitized dopamine rush, it's a lifestyle, it's art, it's community building. And it's more than just modern console games, it's retro games, it's PC games, it's mobile games, it's tabletop games, it's arcade games. The list goes on, and we love it all. I'm Sam Stone. I've been playing games my entire life, and I'm here to introduce Power Up, the show where we take you with us as we go to the biggest gaming events around the world, talk to both indie and biggest developers behind all the titles that you love, have spirited discussions about the hottest burning topics in the gaming industry today. We want you to come in and check it out. So sit back, plug in, and power up. MMOs are one of the most popular gaming genres around because it's all about community. And the developers of some of your favorite MMOs are Daybreak Games. They're the forces behind Magic the Gathering Online, Dungeons & Dragons Online, DC Universe Online, EverQuest, the list just goes on. I got to go to San Diego Comic-Con to talk to them all about it over at Mission Brewery, one of the finest craft breweries in all of San Diego. So let's go ahead, roll the tape as we talk about some of the biggest Daybreak game titles and what's coming next for each.
It is the land of EverQuest.
This year marks the 25th anniversary of EverQuest and the 20th anniversary of EverQuest II. Before World of Warcraft, EverQuest has been keeping the fantasy MMO alive and well, and it's still running today with new content coming out regularly. We're going to talk to Jen Chan, who's the head of Darkpaw Games, all about it. Time to sit with me today.
Thank you for having us. I love this whole experience and this excitement.
It's wild to me because when EverQuest started, the main OS was Windows 98, and here we are 25 years later. How has it been seeing EverQuest not just endure, but thrive and grow for over 2 decades?
It's been an amazing experience because it's always been about the players, right? Ever since it first launched, it was always the players that made it special. It was meeting that person across the world when you couldn't back then, because social media didn't really exist back in '99, right? And so you were playing with other people across the world, and you were making friends and making lifelong relationships, and even like meeting your love of your life in it. So it's been such an honor. I feel so choked up about all the people that we've touched by just playing EverQuest.
Well, you know, what are some of your favorite memories of like the community? Or is that like picking a favorite kid?
That is very much like picking a favorite kid. But certainly the wedding at Fanfare, yes, it was still Fanfare at the time. That's just spectacular. It's like bringing their digital selves out into the real world and just getting married. And I think they have some kids now and maybe some grandkids. I don't even know.
Who are hopefully playing EverQuest. So in terms of new updates, you know, you've got the Scars of Destruction coming to EverQuest II, and you've got the Outer Brood coming to EverQuest.
I can't tease very much about the Outer Brood for EverQuest, other than it's going to be huge. We did show off one of our dragons, and that dragon is the largest creature at all that you'll ever be able to fight in EverQuest. Scars of Destruction is very much a harkening back to EQ and the Scars of Velius expansion. So when we're trying to come up with it, it's like, okay, how can we not only harken back to EQ, but also make it a completely new thing? Scars of Destruction is really about what happened to Vishan's cross over the land. What happened there? Who's inhabited? And where are we going? So it's definitely a harken back to EQ1's Scars of Velius expansion.
What a lot of viewers may not know is that EverQuest predates World of Warcraft by years. Like, how is it kind of like leading the way in the fantasy MMO space?
Certainly, it's all about the community. Everything that we want to do is all about the community and making sure that they can feel not only welcome and not feel completely alienated by something that we're about to put out, but we definitely want people to feel at home, but we also want them to be able to experience whole new worlds, whole new adventures, and whole new ways of playing the game.
Absolutely. And again, EverQuest and EverQuest II available and live and kicking and thriving 25 years on. Jen, thanks for taking the time to speak with me today.
Well, thank you.
The world of J.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings continues on with Lord of the Rings Online. And before the big tabletop explosion that we're currently enjoying, Dungeons & Dragons Online had that on lock for years, and they are still as vibrant ever today. We're going to talk to Rob Ciccolini from Standing Stone Games all about it. Rob, thanks for taking the time to sit down with me today.
It's an honor.
Let's talk about the latest things coming to D&D and LOTRO. And, you know, with LOTRO, you've got the Legacy of Morgoth coming up. So
We do indeed.
We're going into the desert. We're moving into Harad after exploring Umbar. Harad, for those maybe who aren't in the know with Tolkien, is like where like the Dark Men, the men that sided with Sauron during the War for the One Ring, reside.
Well, one thing that's interesting is that not all of the Haradrim followed Sauron. You'll get to meet the wide variety of them, but also there are lost elves there that didn't take the ships west, and we're going to learn some of the secrets there, and I think that that's going to be very exciting for the players to have elves that they've never encountered before.
There's some new mechanics coming to the game too, birding, ring wraith attacks. Like, how is it kind of like keeping players on their toes while giving them more tools to work with?
Well, one of the interesting things is that there are a lot of people who play LOTRO, and they do it to exist and live in Middle-earth and experience that. So being able to do something like birding and have it feel like something that Tolkien would do is really interesting. I don't know that many other games would have that kind of hobby. For the Ring Wraiths, those are brand new servers. For the first time in a long time, we're going to have a server that's based in Europe for our European players. They seem really excited about it, and while you're on those servers on Mordor and Angmar, the Ring Wraiths can creep in and attack you at any time, and like sometimes your best strategy is going to be like to run away and find safety in numbers with other players.
In terms of like Dungeons and Dragons, you've got, I mean, the Draenor playing a huge role moving forward. Like, what can you kind of tease about the upcoming, you know, myth of Draenor and coming to Dungeons and Dragons Online?
We're going back to the Forgotten Realms now, and in the east, there's a elven city, a ruined elven city called Myth Draenor, and this was a bastion until it was destroyed by the Red Wizards of Thay. And anyone who's seen the movie kind of knows about the Red Wizards of Thay, right? Because that was a big villain for them. And so you're going to be able to see that in Myth Draenor. All of the ruined magic there wanders around in clouds of wild magic. So the magic that the players can do isn't as reliable in other places. You have to be careful, because if you're standing in one of these magic clouds when you cast magic, anything could happen, and that variability is going to be super exciting.
One of the things that I find super exciting about the state of Dungeons and Dragons is that there's been this huge like tabletop explosion within the last 5 to 7 years. You know, it's not like when I was in middle school, like having to furtively go up and be like, yo, you got some like 4-sided dice, or you got a 20-sided dice. Like, now it's like become very much the mainstream. How has it been seeing that kind of embrace of Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop RPGs kind of carry over into Dungeons and Dragons Online?
Oh, it's been great. The TTRPG space has just exploded, and you've seen so many people bring so much passion to it that I could have never imagined when I was playing D&D as a kid, right? And you're in such a small group, and I think that energy is carried over, because one of the special things about Dungeons & Dragons Online is we've talked about community and how important it is. Well, I have a responsibility to bring that experience to the players, because they're all, at least to start, Dungeons & Dragons players. And so having the voice of the DM speak to you in all the adventures, having these iconic Dungeons & Dragons places and villains, we have to make sure that Vecna feels like Vecna and Myth Draenor feels Myth Draenor. It's really exciting to see that now creep out into other spaces and become so popular.
What else can you tease about the future of D&D Online and LOTRO?
Well, D&D Online, Obviously, we're going to Mitch-Raynor now. In the future, we'd love to visit other places and other worlds. For Lord of the Rings Online, I think that we've teased that we're moving south and west, and we're at the very edge of Umbar, and I'm sure that no one's going to be surprised when we delve into the heart of it in the future.
And again, check out Lord of the Rings Online and Dungeons & Dragons Online, and let's hear it for Rob and Standing Stone Games. Woo! I love Magic the Gathering. The game's been out for over 30 years. I run a black deck myself. I love those kind of swamp cards. But we're here to talk about Magic the Gathering Online, which if you're looking for a no-frills, straight-up trading card experience online, Daybreak Games has been delivering. We're going to talk to Ryan Spain, the creative director of Magic the Gathering Online, all about it. So I've been playing Magic the Gathering since the mid-90s, and now you look at stuff like Commander Duel. How is it kind of adding these new ways for players to experience Magic the Gathering and find new depths and kind of nuances to it?
One of the things that makes Magic so special is over 30 years of the game being around, there's an insane number of cards, and we have most of them in our game. We have over 25,000 unique functioning game pieces interacting in our platform. And that kind of depth leads players to want to create their own formats. The most popular way to play Magic is Commander, and that's a player-invented format. We go out of our way to give players a sandbox for their own format creation.
You all have a big competition coming up with the Vintage Cube tournament.
Oh yeah, that's the thing I'm most excited about. We just kicked off, in partnership with Ultimate Guard, the Magic Online Vintage Cube Live tournament series. This is a series of online qualifiers. So you're going to play on Magic Online to qualify, but it culminates in winning a trip to Las Vegas for MagicCon Las Vegas 2024 to compete in a live, physical, tabletop Vintage Cube draft in which you get to keep the cards that you draft. And for those of you who are not familiar with Cube, this is a hand-selected 540 card set of some of the most sought-after, rare, and powerful cards of all time. It's going to be worth at least $65,000 and will be split up from between the 8 finalists who draft and play for the cards in it. It's going to be super exciting. A lot of new to Magic players, there's just a lot going on in the Magic space. And so especially those players who, a lot of new players coming in are getting into Commander, right? And we are the only place to play authentic digital Commander. So we've made a really big push to make it more welcoming to new Commander players, offering easy ways to get into collecting important Commander cards so that you can use them in your deck building, offering tournament play for Commander, both competitive and casual. So that's really, it's about continuing to build it so that they'll come, and word of mouth will get out there, and we'll let people know, hey, this is it. If you want to play Commander at 3 a.m. when you just got an itch, we got you.
Yeah, it's a Field of Dreams situation. If
Yeah.
you build it, they will come.
Right.
It is kind of unprecedented, though. You look at all the other digital trading card games, and none have the staying power as Magic the Gathering Online. Just to kind of close this out, Ryan, how has it been seeing Magic the Gathering continue to stand the test of time and give players a new way to experience the TCG experience that only Magic the Gathering can deliver?
It's really great. We have enough unique stuff going on that we're just essential to a lot of people's Magic experience. We just offer things that no other experience does, even tabletop. So making sure we are reaching new audiences and supporting our existing ones. Our player base is amazing. We have people who've been with us for the whole run, like I have, and making sure we're taking care of them and listening to them and just continuing to expand what we're offering to players based on what they're telling us and what they're showing us they want.
And again, check out Magic the Gathering Online. Tell your friends, get them to play too. Check out all the stuff that the game has to offer. Ryan, thanks for taking the time. Let's hear it for Ryan and for Magic the Gathering Online.
Thank you.
This year marks the 13th anniversary of DC Universe Online. Across all the changes to the DCUO has been the big constant, and putting out new content regularly. We're going to talk to the designer and producer of DCUO and talk about the latest and talk about the game's legacy as it celebrates its 13th anniversary. I'm here with the lead designer, Chad, and the game's lead producer, Ken. And gentlemen, let's talk about DCUO. In terms of like that new content, I mean, you kind of have it right on your shirt. Harley Quinn is going to Apokolips.
Yeah, it's a weird mashup. Like on paper, you look at it and you're like, those two things don't really go together. But I assure you, gentle reader, they do. Just like chocolate and peanut butter. I really appreciate her zany attitude and sort of contrasted against just the like unabashed evil of Apokolips.
You guys are about to launch on Xbox Series XS. It's with the 8th platform that,
I've lost count. Like, how many platforms now, Ken?
So it's 6 platforms, 8 SKUs. We emulate PS4 on the PS5 platform. We emulate Xbox One on the XS. We're across PS4, PS5, Xbox One X, Switch, and PC.
Yeah, and this one comes from the old personal collection. I got it on PS3, so I guess been there since the beginning. Like in terms of looking back at that beginning, it's wild, right? Because we're seeing the launch of a new DC universe with the new Superman movie next year. We just saw the end of the Arrowverse a couple years ago. We saw the end of the DCEU, and DCUO reflects those changes. But it also stays it's in its own continuity.
As you said, we do live in our own continuity. We have a great partnership with DC. They are very open to us exploring new ideas and pushing boundaries and changing up storylines whenever it makes sense. We sometimes, very rarely do they have to pull us back at all. I think as far as getting into the different storylines, I think it's more fun for us because we do get to play around with what's going on outside of our game and kind of tie into it. But we also can completely come up with whatever story feels fun for the team or exciting or ties into what we've done before, and we can come back to it.
You're dealing with some of the biggest icons in the DCU. Like, who are some of your favorite, heroes and villains? Because players get the option to mentor under either. Who are some of your personal favorites?
It's a tough question, and it sounds silly to say that, but I feel like what's your favorite game and who's your favorite superhero are always my hardest questions because I have so many and it changes. And so there's favorites from periods in my life. Like in 1989, Tim Burton made Batman and it changed my life. Right? I was serious. My mom made me a Batman costume. I had a Batman hovercraft that we made for the science fair, won first place. True story. And so for the longest time, it was just him. But the more I get into the DC universe, the more I sort of latch on to lesser known characters like Fire and Ice, or lately for me, it's Cassandra, Batgirl. I freaking love her backstory. I love sort of what she's overcome. And then she also sort of has that gothy, stealthy, in the shadows attitude that Batman has. So it's all over the place with me. I'm sorry.
Classic, man. All day long. Every day. No, The Flash always has a special point for me, just because it was the first comic that was given to me by my dad. The Flash will always have a special point in my heart.
You were talking about working with DC and going back, Jim Lee contributed to the making of DCUO, Marv Wolfman, Jeff Johns. How is it kind of having that creative blessing and that creative shorthand with DC proper?
I didn't work here when Jim was here, but Chad, I don't think you did either, but going back through old reference material, because we've got 15 years of reference that we can still dig into.
No, yeah, I also haven't met Jim Lee, but I'd like to. Jim, call me. We can hang out, play DCUO. It's a huge legacy to live up to. He set such a foundational art direction for this game. And it's super fun too, because I'll be I was telling you earlier, I'll be digging around in our repository looking at old concept art, and I pull out a picture and I'm it's signed by Jim Lee, and I'm I've never seen this before. Has anybody else ever seen this? So I don't know, it feels like we have history there. It's real comics history tied to our game, and it's super exciting.
One of the big kind of underlying factors across Daybreak, they have really strong, dedicated communities.
Oh, it's amazing. They're great because they both lead into the two different things we ask them to do. Be superheroes, work as a team, or be supervillains and cause trouble. They like doing both of those things. The game sort of sets a platform, a framework for them to join up in leagues and form a superhero team, which is what everybody wants to do now, right? That's the zeitgeist. That's what people are interested in. They see heroes on the big screen forming together in teams and tackling stuff together, and our community does that. And they always help other people out. Every time I play incognito. I'm not going to tell you who I am because I want to play with you randomly, right? You just queue up with randos. They res you when you're down. They always help you learn mechanics. They're genuinely fun to play with. I'm always having a good time playing with our community.
Yeah, adding on to that, I've been very open with the community that I play with my 9-year-old son. And so it's a little nervous when you're a dad watching your son play a game with a bunch of people from the internet. But they have been incredibly kind to him. They have been incredibly helpful. They really understand that he's trying. And then they just come right in and they just help him out. They tell him what he should be doing different. They tell him where to stand. They're not always immediately patient,
but they've never left him feeling like he doesn't want to play again. And so I love our community. Hey, for those of you out there, you have no idea when it's me, Chad, or my son. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Keep it up.
What else can you guys tease real quick about the DCUO and as much as you can?
I was like trying to remember stuff like while I was waiting to do the interview. I'm like, okay, what are the things that are coming up, Chad? Homecoming is definitely next. We got like Homecoming's returning. It's going to be earlier this year. It's coming out alongside a Starfire ally, and she's going to be really freaking cool. I love Starfire. We're doing some stuff for Year of the Dragon. I don't know how much of that was announced. I think we've said the words though, so I think I can repeat it. And of course, Harley Quinn versus Apokolips is coming out in September. And I think we're going to another console, like we said earlier, Xbox Series X and X, very quickly. We don't know. I can't say when, but
Well, there you have it. And again, check out DCUO, soon to be on 8 different platforms, 8 different SKUs. Let's give it up for Chad and Ken and DC Universe Online.
So Daybreak Games weren't the only folks that we talked to at San Diego Comic-Con. We also talked to CGC, who has branched into video game grading to make sure that your collectibles and purchases are the highest possible quality. Here we are talking to Kenneth Thrower all about it in this bonus interview. Check it out.
I feel like there's a lot of nuance when it comes to grading home video and video games versus, say, trading cards and comic books, which largely come in a magazine format. There's a big difference between grading Betamax and Laserdisc. There's a big difference between grading a PS3 game and a TurboGrafx 16 game. Like, how is it kind of like navigating that wide, varied world?
Yeah, thank you for that. You're 100% correct on that. You can ask any of our graders, and grading home video and video games, these are 3-dimensional objects. A lot of our other collectibles are almost 2D in form, it's front and back. It's very simple. But with video games and home video, you can have not only this larger 3-dimensional object, but you can also have different states. So we have sealed, we have complete in box, we have card only, we have prototypes. So there's so many different states that you have to do. And when you get into something like complete in box, you even have, you have a cartridge grade, you have a box grade, you have a manual grade. So there's many pieces to it.
What are some of the criteria that you look at when you're grading something like like an open video game?
Yeah, so all of these formats are different too. So what you have to look at on, say, Atari 2600 can be totally different than what you're looking at with like PS2. Is the disc scratched up? Is it cracked? Is it even playable? With cartridges, you have things, like the is the board inside correct for the game? So we have to know date codes. We have to know chip codes. Is it even the right chip that's inside of it? Has it been swapped? So yeah, there's a lot of nuance and a lot of database that we have to keep track of with these games.
I feel like there's a real big growth in the industry overall. I mean, you look at how everyone's like doing like mock VHS and VCR covers and stuff. And of course, the actual VHS copies are becoming like high collector items. Cassette tapes kind of the same way. Like, how is it kind of seeing that and how CGC fits within that growing appreciation of these older home video formats?
Yeah, we've definitely tried to harness that market. I mean, nostalgia is key in these collector markets, especially for pop culture. And I mean, the same as we've seen the appreciation for comic books and trading cards. I mean, like, who didn't play video games, right? Like, it's part of everyone's background. So same with home video. I mean, hopefully we'll get into music too in the future, but like, these things are like a part of like who we are. They're part of our DNA. They make us like, the movies you watch, the games you play, all these things make us who you are. So we like to take an approach to, everything that we can grade. It's a lot of work on databases, a lot of work on holders and stuff, but we gladly, appreciate that audience, being shipped to us and getting to see everyone's, personal grails.
100%. We're recording this episode shortly after the release of Nintendo World Championships for the Switch. And of course, there's this if there's a holy grail within the NES collection, it is the original Nintendo World Championships. And from what I understand, I mean, you guys have kind of maybe got like one of the rarest games in collection and auction. Like, I think is it a record setter for you guys?
Yeah, so right now, Golden Auctions is auctioning off a Nintendo World Championships gold cartridge. There was 26 made. These were handmade, so they cut out like a label, and you literally use like a paste stick to put it on. This copy is labelless, so the label is fell off of it, as some of them do. It only got a 4.0 because of the labelless copy. But that being said, this is the first time in about a decade that one of these has come up for auction.
Mm-hmm.
And this copy right now, with I think about 22 days ago, is at $195,000. and some change. So
Gonna have to take out another mortgage for this one, guys.
Yeah.
For people that are curious about getting their VHS copies graded or getting like their Super Nintendo or Famicom games graded, like what's the process that people at home can kind of take to get CGC grades for their stuff?
it's pretty simple. All of our online submissions, you can go to basically cgcvideogames.com, cgchomevideo.com. Very simple process. We have free memberships. We had paid memberships for lower rates. And you just look up the title, submit what you want. It's pretty simple. You send it to us, we send it back to you graded and authenticated.
Well, there you go. Go in, go out, and get that grade. Kenneth, what else can you kind of talk about the CGC kind of grading, grading for both video games and home video as we kind of enter this golden age of nostalgia?
Yeah, just keep an eye on us and follow us on social. We're working on a lot more stuff. We've got a lot of, for any collectors, of Japanese items. We have the whole Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo Famicom and Famicom Disk System, and more coming up. So those will be available shortly.
As a fan, I watch with bated breath. Kenneth, thanks for taking the time to speak with me today. Let's hear it for Kenneth Thrower! And that's a wrap on the first episode of Power Up. Thanks for joining us. Special thanks to Daybreak Games, the maker behind all your favorite MMOs, to CGC for making sure all the vintage games you pick up are top quality, and of course to Mission Brewery for just letting the good times roll. This has been Power Up's first episode. We'll catch you next time, so be sure to sit back, plug in, and power up.